I just wanted to focus on, first of all, the issue of sexual violence, if I can. Figures obtained by myself in recent times have shown a shocking increase in the level of sexual violence in Ireland over the last number of years. And while the figures were down marginally in 2020 because of COVID, between 2016 and 2019, there's a massive increase. So the CSO recorded 2,520 sexual offences in 2016, and that increased to 3,340 in 2019. A massive increase in the numbers of rape, abuse of children under 17, and sexual assault. There needs to be a serious national conversation about the underlying reasons for this increase and how we can best respond to the increase. This week also showed unbelievable information from the CSO in their publication of sexual assault figures. More than 1 in 5 of those who committed a sexual assault was a boy under the age of 18. 20%. An incredible and startling figure. And even more startling than that was that 3 in 5 of victims, or 60% of victims of sexual assault, were children. In this generation, children under the age of 18 are the most vulnerable in this state with regards to this type of sexual crime. It's an incredible situation, and it's an issue that the country is not dealing with. On the news, the CEO of the Rape Crisis Centre said one of the driving forces of this increase in abuse by youths on youths was the amount of internet pornography, hardcore internet pornography that is being consumed at a very, very young age in this state. Now, I've raised this a number of times, and when I do, the government fret over it. They shake their heads, but at the end of the conversation, they shrug their shoulders. No party in this Dáil has brought about any legislation to end children as young as 10 years old accessing hardcore internet porn, except for one party, and that's Ain 2. I have a bill currently before the Dáil waiting to get into second stage, which, if passed, would make it illegal for international companies to make a profit out of selling hardcore pornography to children as young as 10. And I really encourage the government to help get that bill through the Dáil. It is far too serious an issue for people to ignore. I also want to discuss the issue of sentencing, which is really important when it comes to sexual violence. In 2019, a man was sentenced for a mere 2.5 years in prison for sexual assault on a 13-year-old girl. In 2015, another perpetrator was given a suspended sentence of a year for the frequent rape and sexual assault of his girlfriend while asleep over the course of a year. And when the judge was giving the sentence, he credited the particular perpetrator for confessing and allowing the case to be brought forward. In February of this year, a former drug dealer was given a fully suspended sentence despite sexually assaulting a woman. Another case in 2021, we saw a man spared a criminal conviction for sexual assault of 2 women if he gave a donation of €100 to the Rape Crisis Centre. These sentences are disgracefully weak. They are not justice for the victims, and they're definitely not a reason for future perpetrators to be afraid of the law. We need to do much better by victims. I also want to talk briefly, if I can, with regards to some of the criminal aspects that the government has introduced in relation to COVID. Now, COVID is obviously a real issue and is a dangerous illness for certain cohorts, especially the old and those who are very ill. But the government has done a very poor job of protecting those in relation to the restrictions and the laws that it has brought about over the last year. According to the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, since March 2020, the Oireachtas has enacted 4 statutes, and the Minister for Health has made 67 sets of regulations in response to COVID-19. These include 40 weeks of bans on religious services, 410 days of wet pubs being closed, and more than 215 days of workplace closures. And this adds up to the longest and most severe lockdown in Europe, and one of the longest and most severe on the planet at the moment. The IHREC report published in February this year was damning in its assessment of how the government has responded to COVID-19, stating that the state repeatedly blurred the boundary between legal requirements and public health guidance, generating widespread confusion about the extent of people's legal obligations. This offends the rule of law, disrespects people's freedoms, and in several specific respects breaches standards of national and international law. That is a shocking indictment of the government's actions over the last while. Now, one of the worst examples, I believe, in relation to the suppression of human rights has been that of religious services. So, for example, Ireland today is the only state in the European Union where religious services are banned. The only state. And we're one of a few countries on the planet, including Saudi Arabia and Korea, where religious services are banned. This, under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is a human right. Now, the government say they intend to return to religious services at some stage, maybe at the end of May, at the same time as the return to people attending museums and galleries. Now, both attendance of museums and galleries are important, but they're not in the same place as a Universal Declaration human right. And for the government to value them in the same way shows a massive disrespect to well over 1 million people in this state for which their religious practice is an essential element of their lives. The Department of Health, the Minister for Health, I should say, before Christmas said that religious services would not be criminalised. And he stood up here in the Dáil and said that. However, the state stood up in the High Court last week to confirm to say that actually saying Mass was now a criminal offence. A priest in Cavan was fined for saying Mass, while a Protestant minister in Dublin was arrested for organising a religious service. Unclear exactly to what they're being charged with. Professor Oren Doyle, a law professor of Trinity College Dublin, said under the government's new COVID lockdown rules, outdoor religious services, including confession, would now be a criminal offence. So the Dáil has been bypassed as a matter of routine. It's wrong, and I would ask the government to make sure that in developing their restrictions and developing the law and the criminal law over the next number of weeks, that the government desist from criminalising these two aspects of practice within Irish society. It's really important in this country that we have a very clear criminal law system. It's really important in criminal justice that people understand exactly what is illegal and what is not illegal. It's really important and that there's no confusion with regards to criminal law in this state. And the truth of the matter is, Minister, there is a significant confusion currently. There's a confusion with regards to the language that the Minister is stating and with regards solicitors for the state are indicating in the High Court. There's a confusion with regards a law professor within Trinity College of what is a criminal act and what isn't a criminal act. And if we expect citizens to obey the law, it has to be clear to them exactly what is the law. And, you know, since the court case in the High Court, I've asked the Minister serious questions in relation to whether or not outdoor confessions were a criminal act. And again, the Minister couldn't give a straight answer with regards to this. Listen, in the time that I've left, the governments are putting together their restrictions for the next month to a country which has had the most severe and longest lockdown in the whole of Europe. I would ask the Minister to make sure that we look at a number of key criteria in the development of any laws going forward. The key criteria are the number of admissions to hospital and the number of admissions to ICU. Right now, thankfully, those figures are very low. In some counties, days go by now where there are no COVID cases. Indeed, in Munster, the number of people who are admitted to hospital at the moment are very low. And this should feed into the government's design of the criminal law going forward. And I'm asking for the government to make sure that we accelerate the pace of reopening and the liberties of citizens in this country,